Hey everybody, here we are with yet another World of Warships replay, and this time I am in the Aoba, which is the Tier 6 Japanese cruiser, and have ended up on the ocean map. A lot of people don't like this map because of the complete lack of islands for concealment and cover. It's not too bad. I find it tends to work out pretty well because the destroyers usually head straight for the middle and put up a wall of smoke, so that does give you some concealment from the enemy team, and also the teams tend to pick a flank and all run along it, so quite often you actually get a sort of either clockwise or anti-clockwise movement by both teams, and they end up trading caps. But the cap zones are actually within firing range of each other, and so it can kind of work out. It is a bit odd though. The Aoba is quite a nice looking ship, I think. All of the higher tier Japanese cruisers are. Now worth note is that the enemy team has a Kitakami. That's a tier 8 premium cruiser. It's an upgrade of the Kuma class cruiser that you see at tier 4. However, it has a shitload of torpedoes, 20 per side, for a total of 40 torpedo tubes. They aren't proper Type 93s, they don't travel the range that you would expect of a Type 93, they only go 10 kilometers, and they're not, I don't think they're that fast, or at least they don't seem that fast. Presumably this is a balance factor for the fact that it has fucking 40 of them. Although a lot of people do complain that they think it's underpowered, which I think is probably a fair call. It can put out a wall of torpedoes that are almost impossible to dodge, but on the other hand, it can be killed very quickly. It's very, very fragile, and it gets spotted quite easily. In the next patch, 0.3.1, it is getting a smoke screen. Whether that will be enough to save it, I am not sure. The Iwaki is currently the only cruiser that gets a smoke screen, so the Kitakami will be joining it in that very exclusive club. But the Iwaki is a tier 4, and it actually sees other cruisers of comparable performance, I guess. If the Iwaki was seeing tier 8s, I think it would probably not be quite so ridiculously powerful as it is. So as I move towards the general direction of the enemy team, I launch my scout. As a correction from one of my previous videos, cruiser scouts are typically in the air for about 6 minutes and battleship scouts for 3 minutes. I think I said before 5 minutes and 2.5, which obviously is not the case. Whether I remembered to annotate the correction in the video or not, I'm not sure. It was a hell of a long match, so I probably will forget to do it. I haven't got around to uploading it yet. But in case I didn't do it, you now know the correct numbers. As I've said before in my tanks videos, I'm a very bad person and never ever read off notes. I just kind of stream of consciousness this shit. And straight away I'm putting citadels into the Kitakami. This is why it's not very strong. It's because it's built on a Kuma class, you know where to citadel it. And at this kind of range, it's easy. He's one of the biggest threats to my team on this map, especially if a destroyer puts up a smoke screen he can then hide in. And so I focus on him. I am taking fire from my left, but that's the Kitakami dealt with. And that is a huge threat to my team, removed from the game. Unfortunately, I'm still taking fire. I'm well within the range of all of these enemy ships on the east side of the map, including at least one Cleveland. Actually, I think both Clevelands. And the Mogami. So at this point, all I can hope for is that the majority of the enemy cruisers focus fire on our battleships or on our destroyer and leave me alone. Sounds like I'm taking fire from one Cleveland at the moment. probably this guy. Yep. Definitely that guy. Had a good hit there on the Megami. And then start looking for some shots on Cleveland. Now I'm thinking of dropping some torps here. Not really expecting some hits, but more to force him into a turn either towards or away from me, which will reduce the amount of fire he can put on me and also gives me a much better chance of putting shells straight through his citadel. As you can see, the Aoba has 4 torpedo tubes on each side. Taking mostly light damage at the moment. The enemy cruisers are not very good shots. But the rate of fire of the Cleveland somewhat makes up for his inaccuracy, which is no fault of the ships, it's just the guy driving it has no idea where to aim. Somebody else has set him on fire, not sure who, but that is a good thing, since being on fire tends to significantly affect your ability to actually fight. I can't remember if fire actually puts a damper on all of your ship's abilities or if it just does certain ones, but I know it knocks hit points off constantly at the very least, so there's that. He's probably beginning to worry about how he can put it out, and finally it does extinguish. Now here, between myself and the Cleveland, we can see an Atlanta, which is a serious, serious threat. The Atlanta's a tier 8 premium cruiser. It's a special type, it's an anti-aircraft cruiser essentially. Instead of having the 8 and 10 inch guns of a cruiser, and I should note at this point that the cruisers typically do have 8 and 10 inch guns. I think I had either in a previous video or one that's, I'm not sure. So if you hear me say 5 inch guns on a cruiser, smack me around the head because I'm thinking of destroyers. But the Atlanta does get 5 inch guns. It has 6 centerline 5 inch twin gun turrets, essentially the same turrets the Gearing has, the tier 10 US destroyer, and then it has one on either side of midships. So it has a potential broadside of 14 5 inch guns, and it also has torpedo tubes. The Atlanta is really not pleasant to fight against. It can put up a rain of shells. Literally, if you just hold left mouse, you'll put out a never-ending stream of shells towards the enemy ships. It is infuriating to be on the receiving end of. And they're extremely good at killing destroyers because of that. They're also quite good at dealing with other cruisers, so I want to keep my distance from him as much as possible. I have taken quite a lot of damage, but somehow I've survived it. I think that spread was aimed at the battleship. Again, the replay system is kind of finicky when it comes to locking targets with torpedo tubes. You can see me trying to get my eye back in on the Cleveland here after his little accident with the Fuso. Most of the enemy team is actually occupied with my teammates, which is a good thing, because if I was being fired at by anything other than that Cleveland at the moment, I would probably have been dead long ago. Thankfully, most of their ships are completely ignoring me, allowing me to get some shots into them while they're distracted. I do get the attention of the Sims, who starts also shelling me. But the thing I really want to avoid is the battleships turning their guns on me. I'm still 11 kilometers out, which is just outside of my torpedo's range. I have a 10 kilometer range. You can launch torpedoes outside their range if the target's traveling towards you. Obviously, by the time the torpedoes are reaching the extreme limits of that range, the target will have moved inside of it. But in this case, the enemy battleships are just too far out, and there's not much point wasting torps at them, aside from which my right side tubes aren't even loaded yet. I'm trying to remember what size guns the Aoba has. I think they're 6 inches. I think... yeah, 6 inches sounds about right. I think they're 155 millimeters, which I'm pretty sure is 6 inches. And then I think 203 is 8 inches. I could be wrong. Like I said, oh, sorry, actually, no. 155, I think, is 8 inches, and then 10 inches, 203. Maybe. I don't know. I'm not good at doing maths. Either way, they're not huge guns, but they're decent enough at this tier. Enemy Fuso goes down. The Nagato is actually close enough to get torqued, but he is already on fire, low on health, and there's not much point. I did launch some out there, as you can see, but they go past quite widely. Our own base is being capped out, and unfortunately I didn't think to reset the guy in our cap.